we're facing some pretty challenging times right now, not just within Australia but throughout the world, and nobody really knows what's happening or when things are going to change. One thing that we are aware of is that all signs look to be that Australia is going to be moving into a recession. Regardless, there's some significant concerns with the current coronavirus and the potential of Australia and most of the world being on lockdown. So what this means is that there is going to be significant impacts to many of your businesses and probably many of your friends and families who you know in business as well. Now, that being said, over the last couple of days, I've had a number of in-depth conversations with advisors, with coaches within the Game Changers team, and people I know to put together a bit of a plan to help you guys move through this. Now, one thing that I do know and have experienced throughout my journey being in business is that with any great challenge, there is also great opportunity. Yet that opportunity can't be gained if either A, we're coming from a place of emotion or fear or scarcity because our brain is not open to creative, innovative, logical ideas. And the second part that falls closely intertwined with that as well is that we can't seek out or gain from these opportunities if we're holding on to the past. Now, the reality is that what's got you to where you are right now is not going to be what's going to get you through to tomorrow, next week, next month, or next year. We certainly haven't seen something like this for quite some time. I certainly haven't seen something to this degree in my business experience yet. I have been through a recession and experienced many challenging and tough times, and know that there's great opportunity in that. So today, what I want to share with you is something that I was discussing with Keith, who's connected in with a lot of coaches and mentors and business owners around the world. And there's kind of three areas that you, as the CEO, as a business owner, needs to start to look at working towards to ensure that not only do you come through the other side of what we're experiencing right now, but you come through thriving and prepared for the massive uptake that's going to happen when this thing clears out. So the first thing around this is you. The first thing we feel you need to be asking yourself is, what do you need to do to protect your health? A lot of studies and a lot of research that I've done on this virus is that it's attacking people with lower immune systems, weak immune systems, and very similar to a cold. So if you're working ridiculous hours, if you're experiencing an overwhelming amount of stress, anxiety, fear, all those things will weaken your immune system. So the best thing you can do is look to eat as much as possible plant-based, organic, live food, and make sure you're dosing up with all your vitamins, vitamin C, vitamin B, vitamin D, etc., etc. The second thing is, what do you need to do to protect your mental health given the likely challenges that are coming in? I'm a big believer of this, and I wrote a post the other day on Facebook that stress is a bigger cause of death than anything else. And unfortunately, it's very easy to be pulled into what's going on right now. Every time you switch on your TV or the radio or social media, there's an overwhelming amount of negativity around what's going on right now. A lot of fear, a lot of anxiety, a lot of projections, a lot of assumptions, a lot of different people's take on what's happening. But let's be honest, 99% of stuff we worry about, we can't change. We can't change this is happening. All we can do is change the way that, the meaning that we're applying to it and the way that we're showing up to face it. And so I honestly believe that our biggest combat to this virus and to what's happening right now is through maintaining solid mental health and really building out our inner game, which is, as you know, is what we're so much about here at the Game Changers. So those two questions for you is, what do you need to do to protect your health, and what do you need to do to protect your mental health given the likely challenges that are coming in, and I don't think we've seen it yet. I think there's more to come. And so this is super, super important. And that might be limiting your time spent interacting on social, interacting with the news and things with this ongoing negativity that's there. The second thing is you need to look at stabilising your mindset. What do you believe is the worst case scenario by the 30th of June, Australian financial year end? So take some time to journal. What do you think is the worst case scenario that's going to happen to you, to your business, to your financial situation, and so forth? And journal it, get it out of your head. When we put things down on paper or we get things out in front of us, it allows us to see things from a different perspective than rolling around our mind. And we can't solve it while it's stuck inside as well. So The second part is then, to counterbalance this. We can't get rich collecting one-sided coins. There's always equal and opposite cause and effect. So what do you believe is the best case scenario 30th of June? So take some time, journal. What's the worst case 30th of June? What's the best case 30th of June? And really allow yourself to dump any fear, any anxiety, but also any optimism you've got onto a page or onto a journal or notebook in front of you. And then what is the middle scenario likely to be between those two? Like, what's the middle line between? So you've got a best case, worst case, and something in the middle. So that's next to help to start to free up the mind and become a little bit more realistic with where things are at. And the third part of this is to plan. Get your accountant, ring your accountant, and ask your accountant to create 3 budgets for you. One budget is looking at a 15% revenue drop and what needs to be done to achieve break even. So if you're to lose 15% of your revenue, what needs to be done in your business to break even? So put a plan together, and it might be potentially, giving staff some paid leave, some unpaid leave. It might mean putting staff off. It might mean changing the product or service that you're offering. But create 3 different budgets. One with a 15% drop and what needs to happen, and then put a plan together what needs to happen to break even. The second with a 30% drop and what needs to be done to break even. A third is a 45 or 50% drop and what needs to be done to break even. And the percentage change can be relative to your business model. You might want to do a more severe scenario like 75% drop. But it's really important to work back, like what's the base minimum that you need to bring into your household to survive and to meet your financial obligations? And then what changes need to be made in the business if that was to happen so that you can maintain you first and foremost? Because I guess, unfortunately, if something's going to go down, it's better that that the least amount of impact is created as possible. It's like, scuba diving. If there's a bunch of divers in the water that are all panicking and going crazy, as a rescue diver, the worst thing you can do is try to approach them to save them when they're panicking, because they'll end up pulling you down with them and you'll both go under. So work out what needs to happen in the business and be okay with the fact that you may have to let staff go. You may have to put staff off. You may have to reduce their hours. At the end of the day, you need to be prepared to make whatever decisions are asked of you in this situation, and not hold on hoping that things will get better. In the meantime, burning your cash, burning your resources, because that's the worst thing that you can do. I guess there's a few approaches to that. One is to look at making yourself and your staff as remote as possible. And that might mean that some staff take paid or unpaid leave. Streamlining if need to. If there's been some staff that you've known for a while, you maybe needed to move on or weren't a right fit. Now's probably the time to do that. As shitty as it is, we've got to do what we've got to do for the greater good of the rest of our staff and our clients as well. The second part is to streamline. Like, look at the top and bottom line of your business. Look at your sales. Look at your operations. Look at your service delivery. What do you need to streamline? So based on those budgets, what do you need to cut back, or what can you afford to cut back and do without if things start to tighten up? Because we want to have an escalation strategy in place depending on how bad things get, depending on whether Australia brings lockdown in or not. What's the minimum you need to maintain operations, to maintain marketing and sales? And I absolutely think that in this time you should be investing in marketing, because it's not going to happen forever. The market's going to come back, and it's better that you're at the forefront. But equally too, don't be silly and go and spend thousands and thousands of dollars on marketing if A, you haven't got a marketing strategy that works, and B, you haven't got the cash to invest in marketing either. There's probably more effective ways than you can do that. The third kind of escalation, I guess, is a little bit more of a drastic measure, and that is, what's the absolute baseline requirements that your business needs to be able to maintain operations, which, probably means more layoffs and more cutbacks. But, this is not just about surviving. We want to thrive through these times as well. It's not a matter of just being in a position where we're breaking even. We want as much as possible, edit, change, revise our strategy and our business model so that even during these times we can remain as profitable as possible, so it puts us into a good position and sets us up for when the market comes back in, whenever that may be, to obviously be able to accelerate our growth on the back end of this, and as I said before, kind of make the most of those opportunities that come our way. And the third part is potentially closing things down or winding things up. If you feel any I guess, anxiety towards this, I suggest getting used to it, because at the end of the day, it's better if you have to go down this path of winding things up and you making the choice to do them, and through that you maintain, cash, you maintain profits, you maintain resources, then you trying to feed all your life savings into getting the business to survive, only to not make it through the other side. You're better off to make the decision, if the time comes to it yourself, step back out, regroup, hold on to whatever cash reserves, capital you've got, resource and so forth, wait, regroup and get ready to relaunch when the time is right. But of course, that's the worst case scenario. If we have to do it, I'm completely okay with that, but we won't have to. It's best to conserve your losses and minimize those losses should you have to make that decision, and be comfortable to do it as well. These are tough times. We don't know how tough they're going to be. And this is more around you guys having the knowledge, having the understanding, and being prepared should you have to make these decisions, because there's no point getting there and not being prepared and then making these decisions from a space of panic, screaming and foreclosure, rather than sort of, I guess, composing yourself, having decisiveness and being able to make the decisions and having the clarity because you've actually sat down and put a plan in place. So those three parts again before I go on the next bit is, number one, what do you need to protect your health? What do you need to protect your mental health given the possible changes? Stabilize your mindset. What do you believe is the worst case scenario by 30th of June, the best case scenario 30th of June, and the middle case scenario? And then plan, get your account to prepare those three budgets and put some plans in place for each, so that if it happens, you can execute those plans non-emotively. You can just execute them decisively, with clarity, with compassion, with appreciation, so that ultimately you can steer your ship through the other side of these tough times. The next, I guess, is what I want to speak into is who you need to be as a leader, as an ambassador for your business and for your team. And for any of you that have been around me for a long time know that I'm a massive advocate of vulnerability to team and letting team know all and everything, the ins and the outs, the ups and the downs, because I believe that's true leadership and that's true culture in an organization. So the first part is, ambassador your staff. No doubt your staff are worried and perhaps panicked about their health, their jobs, and if they can't pay their bills. So it's important to communicate to your staff that the objective is to get the business to the other side of this pandemic in a strong position. Life will go on. There's a lot of people that think that this is the end of time. I don't at all believe that. In actual fact, I believe that there's a lot of positivity to come out the other side once we get through this. And I've seen enough challenges in my life, interviewed enough people on the Comeback Game podcast, which is exactly about just that, interviewing people that have gone through massive adversity, massive challenges, and each of them have seen the growth, the opportunity, the good things that have come out of the other side. It's part of nature that events like this happen, but it's important to communicate with your staff and provide some reassurance to them. Next is, what's the company position on the virus and what happens if they get sick? So, share with them your company's position, share with them what happens if they get sick, the support you will and won't be providing them. And then what the company is doing to protect itself, their jobs. You are fighting against large amounts of social media and staff are overwhelmed with that. They're overwhelmed with all the bogus claims, plus possibly the real ones, and it's a little bit hard right now to work out what are real and what are not real. I've been living here in Bali, and you walk down the streets and you wouldn't even know this is going on anywhere else in the world because everyone's just getting along the day like it's real and it's here, but they just have a different way of dealing with things, I think, than a lot of the other population as well. I've been very much up to date with what's happening in Australia and the rest of the world, but it's really important that you share with them what the company's doing to protect itself and their jobs, and let them know some ways around how they can help themselves out through eating, through maintaining a positive mindset. Share with them a calm, consistent, clear messaging, at least weekly, if not more frequently than that. So that's kind of your stuff. The second thing is around succession planning, which we spoke about a little bit. Know how many weeks of cash reserve you have at all times. So it's really important that you know how many weeks of cash you have, that if your revenue was, new sales were to completely dry up, how many weeks of cash have you got to support the fixed outgoings of the business? Next is how much revenue decline can you cope with, and when do you need to take action? So this is partly connected back with the budgeting, is if you're clear of those things, you can and you're tracking this on a weekly, daily basis. It will let you know what are those points that you need to start to take action, what are the action need to be taken. Once again, it helps you to maintain a calm mindset through this and do what needs to be done to get to the other side in the best position possible. And then know what supply chain lines are going to impact your revenues and when. So, based on where you get your supplies from, if you're more of a product business over a service business, it's really important to understand where do your supplies come from and what's the likely impact going to be, because it might be a good time to potentially pivot your models. I know we've been seeing a lot of coaches and a lot of PTs and people pivoting to an online model, which I think is fantastic. The only slight concern that I've got is potentially companies that have never ran an online model going to an online model, and whether or not they've got the ability to deliver that successfully to their clients. But I guess anything's better than nothing at this point in time. But it's important to know the supply chains, what the impact's going to have, and likely when, and maybe communication with them too would be ideal. And then lastly, on the succession planning, is asked to negotiate with large creditors now to preserve cash. So go back to large creditors. A lot of them will probably be understanding and start to negotiate credit terms to help you through this, especially if you've got long-term, positive, good credit history with them. They're more likely to assist you and to help you with just delaying or extending payment terms, so that you can obviously preserve cash as much as possible through this time. So I guess the last part of this that I think is really important as well is opportunity. Every downturn creates opportunity. You've only got to look at, and if you want to research on Google, research on YouTube, the recessions and companies that achieve significant growth through recessions in the past. And so every downturn creates opportunity. Spend time mitigating risk and also time analysing opportunity. So Michael taught a fantastic thing in our last intensive around the SWOT analysis 2.0, which is not just standard SWOT, but it had some other strategies around understanding your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, and what strategies to play based on what was showing up in your business. And so I'd recommend, if you haven't already, jump on the portal and watch that, complete that training, and that's going to equip you with the tools to understand what game to play at the moment, and how aggressive you play that game as well based on the current business position. If you're sitting pretty, you've got plenty of cash reserves, business is strong, you're still a business that's got potential to ride this through, it might be a great opportunity for you to capitalize and purchase or buy into other struggling or other challenged businesses. But equally too, if you're a business that hasn't got a lot of cash reserves, things are quite tight, you maybe already noticed revenue losses, you maybe need to play a more conservative strategy where you mitigate your risk a lot more heavily than some of those other businesses as well. So spend time mitigating risk, which is a lot of what I've shared with you today, but also time analysing opportunities. Like, what are the opportunities that are going to present themselves to you, to your business in the market, that you can potentially capitalise on based on your position. And if you do what I've shared here and have those plans in place, it's going to allow you a lot more time to think, a lot more presence, and allow you to be a lot more relaxed to then take action on those decisions when they come up, rather than doing what a lot of people are doing right now, which is just spending so much time in stress and anxiety and scarcity. The second is the virus and the recession will pass. So we were heading for a recession anyway. I think the virus is just going to fast track that. It was already on the cards. It's already something that we've been sharing and talking about. We thought that it was going to happen more towards 3/4 at the end of the year was what was starting to show up at the start of this year. I think the virus has just moved along what was already there, but the virus, the recession will pass. And although no one knows when, what can you do now to improve your margins and increase your customer base? It's very easy to get caught up into this negative mindset that things are going backwards, I'm losing customers, people aren't buying, people don't want to spend money, all this. But our thoughts create our reality, and where our focus goes, our energy flows, and our results show. So as hard as it might be right now to be positive, there is opportunities out there. And as I said at the start of this video, is that if you're either A, too stuck in fear and scarcity and all those negative emotions, or B, you're too fixated on holding on to your business the way that it has been, the way that's worked for you in the past, you're not going to be able to see the opportunities. I spoke to a guy a couple of days ago that did $500,000 in the last month selling respirator face masks online, right? So there's a lot of opportunities out there right now, and the only way you're going to be open to them and to receive them is through being calm, being connected with your heart, being relaxed, and having clear and defined plans and risk mitigation strategies in place, so you can then put the rest of your thought patterns into looking for opportunities, looking for gaps in the marketplace, looking for how you can capitalize in this time. Because ultimately, you've got a family to feed, you've got food to put on the table for yourself and for others, and you've got staff to look after as well. So the better position you can be in as a business owner, the CEO, the more calm your mindset, the better you'll be able to help steer this ship, whatever that ship's going to look like in a few days, weeks, months' time, to help and serve all those around you that you love and care for. And last part of this is to stop gossiping and reading the news and build plans. I very rarely watch the news, yet recently I have, just because I had been so disconnected from what's been happening in the rest of the world, being here in Bali, that I engrossed myself in it and noticed that it was still quite easy to be pulled into the emotion, even though I think that I've got a fairly fixed mindset. So, what I recommend is stop gossiping, stop talking about it, focus on opportunities. Our brain has this amazing ability to create and pull to us that we seek out the most. It's like that whole saying around, you want to buy a new car and you decide you want to buy a new white BMW and you start seeing it everywhere. That's because the reticular activating system, starts to filter in experience and situations related to that you're focusing on. So if your focus right now is doom and gloom and all the shit, despite the fact that situations aren't favorable right now, you're going to keep focusing on that, and you're going to keep attracting in that and make a whole bunch of story that may be real, but a lot that's not real, which is going to jade your perception of reality, and it's going to create the situation to be a lot worse than what it actually is. However, if you limit the time you spend getting updates and make sure they're from a reliable source, and you spend more time planning, you spend more time collaborating with your team, leading your team like a bloody good leader and a CEO, being vulnerable with them, bring them on board, I'm absolutely confident that you can steer things through on the other side, not just survive it, but actually thrive through it as well. So, now is your time to step up as a leader of, your business, of your family, of your greater community, and I guess really show faith and force forwards in putting things in place to ensure that you can come out the other side way better for it, way better for it. So just know from the bottom of my heart that myself and each and every one of the coaches and the team here, the Game Changers, have your back. We're in your corner every step of the way, and we'll do absolutely everything that we can to ensure that you come out the other side of this better for it. And what that's going to call for is for you guys to be quick to implement. It's going to be call for you guys to be quick to ask for help when you need it. Put your hand up, and quick to share your wins and share your lessons. Share what's working for you, so there's a community. We can all come together stronger and move through this together, rather than alone and isolated, which so many other business owners out there are at the moment. So lots of love for me. Look forward to seeing each and every one of you guys very soon. And please, if you need anything, reach out to us. We're here for you, and we'll keep the communication going strong. Bye for now.